Deep in the cold silence of space, a dark war zone floated like a graveyard. Broken ships drifted slowly, their metal bodies torn apart, lights fading in the emptiness. No signals, no voices, no life. Every race that had entered this place had vanished without a trace. The stars around it glowed weakly, as if they too feared what was inside. From far away, a new fleet appeared. Sleek ships of shining steel, engines glowing blue. The human fleet had arrived. At the front of the formation was the flagship HFS Valor, commanded by Admiral Rylan Cross. He stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the endless wrecks before him. His crew worked quietly, scanning the area. Every sensor told the same story. Danger everywhere, but no clear target. Status report, Rylan said calmly. Admiral, we are entering the war zone. No active signals detected. But something's wrong, said Commander Vale, his second in command. There are energy traces inside those wrecks. Small, moving, like shadows. Rylan's jaw tightened. Keep scanners on full. Weapons ready. No one relaxes. The fleet moved deeper into the zone. Broken ships drifted past like silent ghost remnants of alien empires who had dared to enter before. Some holes were sliced clean, others burned into ash. The crew whispered among themselves, trying not to show fear. They had heard stories of ships that went silent, of monsters that lived between the stars. A sudden static cut through the comms. Voices, faint, broken, in a language no one understood. The sound crawled through the ship like a whisper from the dead. Source? Rylan asked. Unknown, Vale said. It's everywhere. Bouncing off the wrecks? Could be a signal. Could be a trap. The crew glanced around nervously. Even the hum of the engines seemed louder now. The war zone felt alive, watching them. Admiral, a sensor officer said, her voice shaking. Something just moved behind that derelict cruiser, large mass, 300 meters long. It vanished before we could lock on. Steady, Rylan said. No one fires without my order. Let's see who's hiding. Outside, the stars flickered. A shadow slid across one of the wrecks fast, silent. Then another. They circled like predators. The fleet slowed, engines humming low. Rylan stared at the main screen. They're here, he whispered. And they've been waiting. Suddenly, the comms came alive again. A voice spoke clearly, this time deep, cold, mechanical. The language translated itself on the screen. You should not have come. The words echoed through the ship. Crew members froze. Vale looked at Rylan. They know we're here. They're warning us. Rylan didn't blink. Or threatening us. A moment later, lights flashed across the radar, dozens of contacts appearing at once. Ships uncloaked from behind the wrecks, black and sharp like blades. They surrounded the fleet in seconds. Enemy vessels detected, shouted the sensor officer. They're locking weapons. Shields up. Battle stations, Rylan ordered. Red lights filled the bridge. The hum of engines grew into a roar. Outside, beams of energy cut through the dark. The first shot struck a human cruiser, shaking it hard but not breaking it. Human guns fired back, the space between the fleets lighting up with explosions. They came fast, Vale said. No warning, no communication. They're hunting us. Rylan watched the battle unfold. The enemy ships moved with perfect coordination, ambushers, killers of fleets. But humans were not like the others. They had learned from every war, every loss. They adapted fast. Target nearest ships, Rylan commanded. Return fire in formation, Delta 7. Keep shields layered, the fleet responded as one. Lasers and missiles launched in rhythm, striking back with precision. 2 enemy ships exploded, breaking into glowing fragments. Still, the attackers pressed closer. The whispers returned louder this time, like a storm of voices. The translation system failed to keep up. Only one phrase repeated clearly, "You will join the silence." The bridge trembled as another blast hit. Rylan gripped the console, eyes cold. They think they can scare us. Vale nodded. They don't know who they're fighting. Rylan pressed a command key. Prepare Echo Protocol. The crew looked up. Echo Protocol was secret, untested, a plan made for impossible situations. "Admiral, are you sure?" Vale asked. "If we don't act now, we'll be like the rest," Rylon said. "Activate it." Orders moved across the fleet. Drones deployed, decoys launched, false signals filled the void. The space around the humans shimmered with ghost images, copies of ships, phantom fleets. Enemy sensors struggled to lock on. Confusion spread among their ranks. For a moment, the battlefield shifted. Human ships turned, moving through the wrecks like hunters instead of prey. Rylon watched as his fleet took back control. "They wanted silence," he said softly. "We'll give them fire instead." But before the humans could press the attack, a new contact appeared. Massive, power levels off the charts. Vale stared at the readings. "Admiral, there's a command ship hiding behind the debris field." "It's big. Very big." Rylon narrowed his eyes. "So, the real enemy shows itself?" The Cums crackled again. The same cold voice spoke once more, now calm and confident. "Leave this place, humans. This is your only warning." Rylon looked out at the blackness of space, the flickering stars, the glowing wrecks. Every instinct told him to retreat, but humans didn't run from shadows. "Warning received," he said. "But we're not leaving." Turned to the crew. "Prepare to engage the command ship. Full power to weapons. Let's show them what humanity is made of." Outside, the dark war zone burned with light as the human fleet surged forward. The battle had begun, and in that moment, the galaxy would soon learn that humanity did not fear the silence. Humanity erased it. But deep inside the wreckage, the enemy command ship began to move. Its core glowed like a rising star. Unknown energy built within, far stronger than anything the humans had faced. Rylon watched the readings climb. "Whatever that thing is, it's waking up." The screen flashed red. Sensors screamed warnings. And before anyone could react, the voice returned one last time, louder, closer, almost inside their minds. "Now you will see the truth." The lights dimmed. The stars vanished in a wave of black energy. And every ship trembled as the war zone itself seemed to come alive. The true enemy had finally awakened. The dark energy faded slowly, leaving the human fleet surrounded by silence once again. The wrecks floated aimlessly, but the sensors screamed warnings. Strange signals flashed in and out fast, shifting, impossible to trace. Something was moving among the ruins. Something alive and deadly. Admiral Rylon stood firm on the bridge, eyes on the glowing radar. "Report at." Commander Vale's voice was tense. "Multiple hostiles. They're fast. One count 20. No. 30 signatures moving in formation." Before Rylon could answer, the first strike came. A flash of light tore through space and invisible beam hit a human cruiser, shaking it violently. Shields held, but the impact rattled the entire fleet. A second blast followed, then a third. The attackers were everywhere, appearing and vanishing like ghosts. "Return fire," Rylon ordered. "Track their movement. Don't shoot blind." Human ships turned and fired into the darkness. Explosions lit the void, but the enemy ships darted away before the shots could connect. They moved like shadows, hitting and disappearing. Every time the sensors caught them, they were already gone. "They're cloaking between shots," Vale said. "We can't hold them off like this." Rylon's voice was calm but firm. "Humans don't break. Keep formation." The fleet tightened ranks, shields overlapping to form a glowing wall. Still, the enemy pressed harder. A destroyer took a direct hit, flames bursting from its engines. The crew barely managed to stabilize it. "Who are they?" Vale asked. "What kind of ships move like that?" The AI on the command deck spoke for the first time, its voice cold and precise. "Enemy identification. The Varn Dominion. Classification, ancient war species. Known for ambush tactics. No known survivors from previous encounters." The name hung heavy in the air. The crew went silent. Everyone had heard the stories the Varn were hunters, destroyers of fleets, ghosts of the stars. Entire civilizations had vanished after facing them. "They think we'll be next," Ryland said quietly. "They're wrong." Another blast shook the Valar. Sparks flew across the bridge. Officers struggled to keep systems online. Alarms wailed. Vale gritted his teeth. "We need a counter. They're hitting faster than we can react." Ryland stared at the map, watching the pattern of attacks. They weren't random. The enemy was trying to herd them into the center of the zone, into a trap. He smiled faintly. "Then let's turn the trap around." Pressed a command code into the console. The system flashed red. Echo Protocol. Authorized. The crew looked up in shock. Echo Protocol was humanity's most secret strategia, mix of deception, electronic warfare, and precise counterstrikes. It had never been tested in real combat. Vale hesitated. "Admiral, if it fails, Ryland said, "we die anyway." Executed. Across the fleet, drones launched into the dark. They scattered false signals, fake energy readings, and ghost transmissions. Some projected holographic images of ships, others mimicked engine trails. Within seconds, the entire war zone filled with illusions. The Varn fleet hesitated. Their cloaked ships slowed, confused by the sudden swarm of targets. Their scanners began to misfire. Some fired at decoys, wasting their shots now, Ryland said, his eyes sharp. Counterstrike. Human ships fired in unison. The missiles didn't aim at the ships. They aimed at the energy patterns revealed during each enemy attack. The blasts hit with perfect timing. 2 Varn ships exploded, their cloaks flickering before vanishing in flames. Cheers broke out across the bridge. For the first time, the humans had struck back. Vale grinned. "It's working. We're turning the tide." But Ryland didn't smile. He looked at the readings. Not yet. They're adapting. Indeed, the enemy ships began to change tactics. Their movements grew sharper, faster. They started to coordinate, forming a circle around the fleet. Then, from deep within the wreckage, a massive signal, pulsed heavy, ancient, terrifying. The sensors lit up crimson. "New contact," shouted the officer. Enormous power signature center of the field. The main screen focused on the source. A colossal ship emerged from the shadow's black armor, glowing red eyes across its hull. It dwarfed even the largest human battleship. "That's their command ship," Vale whispered. "It's massive." The Varn flagship moved forward slowly, like a predator showing its teeth. As it approached, the whispers returned across the comms louder now. Clearer, like a voice echoing from deep space. "Humans, you fight with courage. But courage is nothing before the void." The voice seemed to vibrate through their bones. Some crew members covered their ears, others froze at their stations. It wasn't just sound, it was inside their minds. Ryland stood unshaken. "You speak of the void," he said calmly, "but we come from darkness too, and we learn to master it." The voice answered with a cold laugh. "You will not leave this place." The Varn fleet formed behind their command ship, their weapons glowing red. Energy built like a storm. The humans watched as dozens of cannons charged at once. Admiral Vale said quietly, "They're going to fire everything." Ryland took a deep breath. "Then we hit first. Lock all targets. Focus on their command ship." The order echoed across the fleet. Human ships turned in perfect unison, cannons aligning, engines roaring. Every pilot, every gunner, every soldier knew this could be their last stand. "Admiral," said the AI, "odds of survival? 17%. Then Ryland replied, eyes steady, "Let's be the 17. The stars lit up as both sides prepared to fire. But before the first shot was launched, the command ship sent one final transmission. It wasn't a threat, it was a countdown. 5, 4, 3. "Brace for impact," Ryland shouted. A wave of crimson energy surged outward, swallowing the field. Human shields flared white under the pressure. Systems screamed. Alarms filled the air, and in that blinding moment, Admiral Ryland realized this. It was no ordinary fleet. They were fighting something built to erase civilizations. As the energy storm faded, the human ships held position, battered but alive. Smoke rose from consoles. Sparks flew from damaged circuits. Vale turned, shocked. We survived. But Admiral, they're powering up again. Ryland's voice was cold, steady, ready. Then we hit back harder. He pointed at the massive ship on the screen. Prepare the Nova Cannon. The crew froze. That weapon was still experimentalized, its power untested in battle. It could destroy the enemy. Or destroy them all. But Ryland's decision was already made. If we fall, he said, we fall fighting. The Nova systems began to charge. Blue light spread across the ship's hull, pulsing like a heartbeat. The human fleet gathered behind the flagship, ready for the next clash. In the darkness of the war zone, the battle lines were drawn again. Humanity had faced death before, but now against the ancient Varn Dominion. They would show the galaxy what it truly meant to fight as humans. And this time, the enemy would not escape. The battlefield burned with distant light as the human fleet regrouped, their ships scarred but still standing. Sparks flickered on the bridge of the HFS Valor, and smoke curled from damaged panels. The crew moved quickly, repairing systems, their faces pale but determined. They had survived the first wave. But everyone knew the fight was far from over. Admiral Ryland stood in the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the massive dark shape ahead the Varn command ship. It hovered like a mountain in space, its surface alive with crimson veins of light. Every few seconds, the ship pulsed with strange energy. The sensors trembled each time. Commander Vale wiped sweat from his brow. Admiral, our shields are at 60%. 2 cruisers are heavily damaged. The Varn are regrouping. They're preparing something bigger. Ryland nodded slowly. They want to crush us in one blow. His voice stayed calm, cold, focused. We won't give them the chance. He turned to the weapons officer. Status on the Nova Cannon? Charging, sir. 30%. We'll need 2 more minutes before it's ready. And we hold for 2 minutes, Ryland said. Every ship defensive positions. We buy time. Outside, the stars flickered again as dozens of Varn ships began to move, forming a ring around the humans. The command ship stayed in the center, its core glowing brighter with each passing second. The enemy's whispers returned across the Cumsoft, haunting, like voices calling from another world. Humans. Your courage is meaningless. Your light will fade. The words spread through every channel, creeping into the ears of every soldier. Some looked shaken. Some clenched their fists. But none turned away. Ryland's voice cut through the fear. Ignore the noise. They want to break our spirit. They don't understand humans fight hardest when hope is small. Vale stepped closer. Admiral, sensors are picking up a massive energy buildup in their command ship. It's unlike anything we've seen. Ryland studied the readings. The power levels climbed higher and higher beyond anything their systems could match. It looked like a weapon strong enough to tear a planet apart. He spoke softly, almost to himself. If they fire that, it's over. Vale hesitated. We should retreat, sir. Regroup. Call for reinforcements. Ryland shook his head. No one's coming. The other races ran from this place. We're the first to stand here, and we'll be the first to end this. On the screen, one of the Varn ships broke formation and charged forward, firing beams of red light. A human destroyer took a direct hit and exploded, scattering debris into space. The fleet shifted to close the gap, but tension spread across every ship. The enemy was tightening the noose. Nova Cannon at 80%. The weapons officer shouted. Ryland nodded. Good. Prepare targeting solution. Vale frowned. Admiral, the Varn command ship is using a distortion field. Our locks will be unstable. Then we'll shoot through the distortion, Ryland said. We don't miss. The enemy fleet began its final attack. Dozens of red beams fired in perfect synchronization, striking the human line. Shields flared, alarms blared. One frigate lost power and drifted helplessly into the dark. Admiral, We can't hold this formation much longer. Vale shouted. Rylan didn't move. His eyes were locked on the glowing shape ahead. Just a few seconds more. Suddenly the coms crackled again. The same deep alien voice filled the bridge, closer and louder than before. Your struggle is impressive, but your end is certain. Surrender now, and I will make it quick. The crew froze, listening to the voice echo across their ship. Rylan stepped forward, face hard. This is Admiral Rylan Cross of the human fleet, he said. We don't surrender. Not to you. Not to anyone. For the first time, there was silence on the coms. The voice didn't answer. Then the sensors screamed. The Varn command ship opened its core, revealing a massive sphere of red light. The energy gathered like a second sun, growing larger every second. It aimed directly at the human flagship. Vale's eyes widened. They're about to fire. Ryland slammed his fist down. Nova cannon ready? 98%. One more second. Fire. The Valor shook as the Nova cannon unleashed its full power. A beam of bright blue light shot across the void, tearing through wreckage, cutting through the darkness like a blade. The beam hit the Varn command ship dead center for a heartbeat. Everything went silent. Then the explosion came. A shockwave ripped across the war zone, throwing ships in every direction. The enemy fleet scattered, their formations broken. The command ship's shields flared, cracking under the force. Flames burst across its hull. Cheers filled the bridge. The crew shouted in triumph. We hit it. Direct hit. But Rylan didn't cheer. He stared at the readings, his eyes narrowing. It's still alive. On the screen, the Varn command ship burned, but its core still glowed, brighter now than before. The explosion had weakened it, but not destroyed it. The enemy roared back to life. The alien voice returned, furious this time. You dare strike the Dominion. You will burn for this. Red light surged across the enemy ship. New weapons activated, cannons unfolding from its sides. Hundreds of smaller Varn ships turned back toward the humans, now enraged. Vale's voice trembled. Admiral, they're coming again. All of them. Ryland took a deep breath. His face was calm, unshaken. Then let them come. Humanity stands. He turned to the fleet-wide coms and spoke so every ship could hear. This is Admiral Rylan. You've seen what they are, predators, killers of worlds. They think we'll bow, that we'll vanish like the others. But we are human. We fight, we endure. And today, we show them the cost of underestimating us. His words spread across the fleet. Fear turned into fire. The crew shouted in unison, ready for battle. Outside, the stars burned with the light of vengeance and weapons as the human fleet formed once more. The enemy swarmed, countless ships racing toward them like a wave of red fire. And in the center of it all, the two flagships faced each other, human and Varn-locked, in a silent promise of destruction. The next clash would decide everything. The war zone burned brighter than a sun. Broken ships drifted between explosions, debris scattering like dust across the void. The human fleet, though battered and scarred, still held its line. Smoke filled the bridge of the HFS Valor, but Admiral Rylan stood tall. Eyes fixed on the monstrous shadow ahead the Varn command ship. Wounded, but alive. The Nova cannon had struck hard, tearing deep into the enemy's armor, but the Varn vessel refused to die. Its core pulsed with violent red light, each beat sending tremors through the wreckage around it. The enemy wasn't retreating. They were preparing for something worse. Admiral Commander Vale said, voice sharp, the Varn command ship's core is unstable. Energy readings are climbing. They're powering something massive. Rylan narrowed his eyes. They're not done yet. They're calling in more ships. Across the field, new contacts blinked into existence reinforcements. Dozens of dark shapes appeared, sliding out from behind wrecks, each armed and ready. The Varn had summoned their full force. Vale clenched his fists. They're trying to overwhelm us. We're outnumbered 5-1. Rylan's tone stayed calm. Numbers never won a war. Strategy does. He turned to his officers. Signal all ships. No one retreats. This is where we make our stand. The order echoed across the fleet. Human voices answered with pride and defiance. They knew what was coming, and still. Not one ship turned away. The Varn fleet surged forward, red beams cutting through the dark like blades. Human shields flared, trembling under the pressure. Explosions shook the Valor, sparks flying across the bridge, shields at 40%. An officer shouted. Ryland didn't hesitate. Rotate formations. Bring damaged ships behind the line. Focus fire on their flanks. Break their rhythm. Human ships moved like a single organism, precise, fearless. They dodged incoming fire, countered with deadly accuracy. Each strike from the fleet hit hard, burning through Varn armor, turning their sleek ships into floating wrecks. The enemy commander responded with fury. The Varn unleashed a storm of plasma fire, forcing the humans back. One frigate took a direct hit, breaking apart in a cloud of flame. The crew's last transmission echoed through the comms, for humanity. Vale slammed his fist. We can't keep trading ships like this. Ryland's voice was steady. We don't trade. We finish. He turned toward the weapons console. Charge Nova cannon again. The officer hesitated. Sir, it's not stable. The first shot overloaded the coils. We risk total core collapse. Then stabilize it on the fly, Ryland said firmly. We'll give it one last shot. Vale looked at him. You're going to fire at point-blank range? Ryland nodded. Exactly. That's the only way to break them. Outside, the battle raged. Missiles screamed across the void. Enemy ships exploded in waves of red and white light. The human fleet tightened its formation, pushing forward step by step. Toward the command ship, every crew member knew what Ryland was planning, and not one refused. Humanity had always faced impossible odds, but when pushed into the corner, they struck back harder than anyone in the galaxy. Admiral Vale said softly, We're losing good people. Ryland didn't look away from the screen. I know, and their sacrifice will end this war. The enemy command ship roared to life. Its core flared brighter than ever before, a swirling sun of crimson energy. The Varn voice returned, cold and final. Your courage is pointless. You cannot kill what is eternal. Ryland whispered under his breath, Everything ends. Nova cannon at 90%. The weapons officer called out. Ryland raised his hand. All ships concentrate fire on their core. Give me a path. Every human vessel opened fire, unleashing everything they had, missiles, cannons, railguns. The darkness turned white with light. Varn ships exploded one by one, clearing a straight line toward the command ship. Admiral Bull shouted, We have a shot. Ryland's voice was a low growl. Then take it. The Nova cannon fired again, a blinding beam of blue energy cutting through the chaos. It smashed into the Varn command ship, tearing through layers of armor, punching deep into the heart of the beast. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a wave of light burst outward so bright it swallowed everything. The Varn fleet froze. Their ships faltered, their weapons stopped firing. The command ship's red core began to crack, lines of blue energy ripping across its hull. Vale stared in disbelief. We hit it. It's breaking apart. Ryland didn't smile. He knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Watch the core. The reading spiked higher and higher, unstable, chaotic. The AI spoke urgently. Warning. Enemy core approaching critical mass. Explosion imminent. Vale's eyes widened. It's going to blow. Ryland's voice was cold steel. Then let it. He opened the comms to the fleet. All ships pull back now. Keep distance. The Varn flagship is finished. Engines roared as the human fleet withdrew, dragging damaged ships behind them. The enemy tried to regroup, but it was too late. The command ship's core shattered, and in a single blinding flash, the entire Varn fleet was consumed in the blast. The shockwaves spread across the war zone, tearing through debris and silence alike. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Varn, only drifting ashes and echoes. The crew stared at the screen in awe. Vale whispered, It's over. Ryland stood silent for a moment. The war zone was quiet again, peaceful, but haunted. He finally spoke. We've done it. The enemy is gone. Val turned to him. At what cost? Ryland looked at the empty space where thousands had died and said softly, The cost of survival. Outside, the wreckage floated like ghosts in the dark. Humanity had won, but the silence felt heavy, as if something unseen still lingered beyond the stars, and far away, deep in the darkness. A new signal flickered to life, one watching, waiting. The war might have ended here, but another storm was already rising. The silence after the explosion was heavy and strange. The war zone that once burned with light was now dark again, filled only with drifting debris and faint trails of smoke. The human fleet floated among the wrecks, their ships scarred and battered, their engines glowing weakly. They had survived the impossible. The Varn command ship was gone. The enemy fleet erased in a storm of light. But Admiral Ryland knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Damage report, he said quietly. Commander Vale read from his console. Half the fleet is damaged. 2 cruisers lost. Shields below 30%. Weapons still online. Barely. Ryland nodded slowly. We're alive. That's what matters. The crew moved with tired but steady hands, repairing systems, scanning the area. For a moment, hope filled the bridge. Maybe finally. The war zone was silent for good, but then the sensor screamed again. Alarms echoed across the Valor. The screen flashed red. Admiral, Vale shouted. Massive energy surge ahead. Bigger than before? Ryland's eyes widened. From where? The command ship is gone. The sensor officer shook her head. It's not from a ship. It's from the field itself. Something underneath the wrecks. Something waking up. The stars trembled. The debris began to move, drawn together by unseen force. Broken metal and ship fragments spun in the void, pulled into a single growing mass. In moments, a shape formed huge, monstrous, alive, Vale whispered. What is that? The AI answered, its voice cold and uncertain. Unknown construct. Origin Varn. Purpose planet killer. The mass solidified, glowing red from within. It wasn't a ship. It was a weapon, an ancient superweapon, buried beneath the wrecks. Waiting for the right moment to awaken, a deep vibration filled the air. Shaking the Valor, across the comms came a voice darker. Deeper than before, you destroyed our fleet. But you cannot destroy the Dominion. The core will burn your stars. The new weapon began charging. Energy spiraled around it like a storm, bright enough to blind the sensors. The readings went off the scale. Vale turned to Ryland, his face pale. If it fires, Admiral, it'll wipe out everything. The fleet, the system, maybe more. Ryland stared at the weapon, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke with quiet resolve. Then we end it here. One last strike. Admiral, our Nova cannon is unstable, the weapons officer warned. It can't handle another full shot. Ryland didn't hesitate. Then we'll use everything we have. Every ship, every gun, humanity's final volley. He opened the fleet-wide channel. His voice echoed across every ship. This is Admiral Ryland. You fought with courage. You faced death and didn't flinch. Now we face one last enemy, one last shadow that thinks it can erase us. But humanity doesn't vanish. We fight until there's nothing left to fight with. This is our stand. This is our moment. Across the fleet, captains and crews answered as one. For humanity. Engines roared. Weapons glowed. The fleet turned toward the heart of the storm. The superweapon pulsed brighter, charging faster. Lightning crackled across its surface. Vale said quietly. If we fail, Ryland cut him off. We don't fail. He raised his hand. All ships opened fire. The void lit up. Beams, missiles, plasma bolts all streaked toward the glowing mass. Explosions tore across its surface, but the core kept burning, absorbing the hits like a star. The Valor shook violently as enemy shockwaves slammed into it. Panels burst, alarms screamed, Crew members held their stations, refusing to fall back. Nova cannon at critical, the officer shouted. Rylan gave the final command. Fire. A blinding beam erupted from the Valar, striking the weapon's core. The light consumed everything, tearing through the storm, ripping open the heart of the beast. The red glow turned white. The energy inside the weapon spiraled out of control. Vale covered his eyes. It's going to blow. Hold position, Rylan ordered. We finish what we started. The explosion came like a second sun. A wave of fire expanded outward, swallowing wrecks, flames, and shadows. The fleet rocked under the blast, shields flaring. For a moment, all they saw was light. When it faded, the war zone was quiet, again truly quiet. The weapon was gone. The Varn's final power erased in its own fire. Vale lowered his hand slowly. We did it. Rylan stood in silence, staring at the empty stars. It's over. The crew looked out at the battlefield, where only human ships now drifted among the ruins. They had faced the darkness and survived. But as the last echoes faded, the sensors caught one final signal faint, distant, from beyond the edge of the galaxy. The AI spoke quietly. New transmission detected. Unknown origin. Message fragment. We are coming. Rylan's eyes narrowed. He looked out at the stars and whispered, Then we'll be ready. The camera pulled back, showing the human fleet glowing softly in the silent dark, small, scarred, but unbroken. Humanity had won the battle. But the war among the stars was only beginning. The light from the explosion faded slowly, leaving behind a sea of drifting debris and silent stars. The war zone that once burned with death and chaos was now calm, like a battlefield after the storm. The human fleet floated in formation, engines low, hulls cracked, but still standing. They had done what no other species could. They had faced the Varn, the oldest warriors of the stars, and erased them in seconds. Inside the command deck of the Valar, Admiral Rylan stood before the viewport, watching the last sparks fade from the void. His reflection stared back at him, tired eyes, a face marked by battle but alive. Around him, the crew moved quietly, repairing systems and counting survivors. Admiral Debril, Commander Vale said softly, the enemy signal is gone. The weapon is destroyed. All Varn ships. Eliminated. R'lyeh nodded, but he didn't smile. Victory had come at a cost. Screens showed the list of lost ships. Brave names now turned into light among the stars. Transmit the message, Rylan said. Vale tapped a few keys. Across the galaxy, the signal spread. The war zone is cleared. Humanity stands victorious. The message reached distant worlds, colonies, stations, and ships that had feared the Varn for centuries. For the first time, hope replaced fear. Rylan turned to the crew. We did what others thought was impossible. We entered the war zone. And we didn't just survive, we ended it. Humanity has shown the galaxy what we truly are. Vale looked out at the wreckage. Do you think they'll leave us alone now? Rylan's voice was calm but heavy. No, they'll fear us now. And those who fear always prepare to strike. The AI interrupted, its voice soft and distant. Admiral, new data detected. Unknown signal at long-range origin. Rylan asked. Unknown. Outside charted space, repeating phrase in multiple languages. Vale leaned closer to the console. What does it say? The AI translated. We have seen your light. We are coming. A long silence filled the bridge. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Rylan's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. So it begins again. He walked to the center of the deck. Prepare the fleet. We'll repair, rebuild, and move forward. Humanity doesn't wait for danger to find us. We face it head on. Vale nodded. Yes, Admiral. The fleet's engines powered up, glowing bright blue against the dark void. Ships began to turn, leaving behind the graveyard of enemies and heading toward new stars. Rylan looked one last time at the silent war zone. We've proven our strength, he said softly. Now we prove our purpose. As the fleet moved away, the camera pulled back, showing the vastness of space. The broken remains of the Varn, fleet scattered like dust. In the distance, faint lights blinked. Signals from unknown worlds, watching, waiting. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was no longer the hunted. They were the storm that ended wars. But beyond the stars, something ancient stirred a new threat, a shadow greater than the Varn. Awakened by the light of human victory, and though the war zone was silent, the real war had only just begun. The screen faded to black, leaving only one message across the stars. They entered the war zone, and humanity erased the enemy in seconds. Next, the rise of the Watchers.